The jury is out for this year's roster of Microsoft releases. Here are the top 10 Xbox One games of 2019, arranged by play scores. The play score is an average of gamer and critic ratings.
Now then, son of power, shall we dance?
At number 10 is Sekiro: Shadows Die Twice. From Software created a whole new genre of punishment with Bloodborne and Dark Souls. Sekiro: Shadows Die Twice follows and strays from the legacy. Playing as a shinobi with the powers of resurrection and a reimagined Sengoku era, it's an interesting premise and definitely a far cry from the Soulsborne game's straightforward grittiness. Unlike the previous games, Sekiro is a stealth action-adventure that offers variety and most especially mobility. With its backdrop of majestic and vibrant Japanese vistas, Attack of the Fanboy puts it as a truly new expression of the design philosophy that From Software has spent years refining. But while the things that make it different are great, ultimately, Sekiro's strength lies in the refining of what made From Software great: combat. It's just as, if not more punishing than their previous titles, but its new verticality allows players to approach scenes and battles in various ways. Though there is an expected level of expertise needed to enjoy the game, critics and gamers have been mostly receptive due to its many redeeming qualities. We'll go with Xbox Tavern's conclusion: due to its punishing difficulty alone, you're either all in or you're all out. If you're one of the latter, you're missing out on what may well be one of the best games of 2019. It has a play score of 8.38.
Do you dream of working on the frontier of space? Are you searching for exciting off-world opportunities? Then come to Halcyon.
Exploring the 9th spot is The Outer Worlds.
Here we go!
Obsidian Entertainment was the name behind many of our RPG favorites, but it looks like they delivered once more. Making use of their extensive background, The Outer Worlds brings narrative freedom into space, telling the story of factions and corporations vying for galactic power.
Come join our corporate family. You won't find a warmer,
Let me apologize in advance. I'm about to ruin your day.
friendlier, or harder working community of employees anywhere in the universe.
For fans of the studio, the writing and dialogue have always been at the heart of their creations, and the tradition continues here. Interactions are still peppered with satire and tongue-in-cheek statements that are made better by its wonderful characters and companions. And it all adds up to an engaging storyline that presents you with morally gray decisions.
But wait, what happens to the folks stuck on the wrong side of dangerous?
I'm afraid the welfare of a few hundred people is too minor a figure into the board's risk assessments.
According to God is a Geek, it's so confidently written and lovingly made that you'll almost certainly want to go back for another adventure when you're done. Set within an open world, it's populated by stunning planets with each of their own adventures. This does add to its feeling of sparseness, but it's remedied somewhat by multi-layered quests, solid gunplay, and unbuggy experience. Obsidian may remain in the shadow of their previous works, but as GameZone says, Obsidian has built a vibrant and freeing world ripe with galactic potential that will hopefully continue being explored in sequels. It has a play score of 8.39.
You are also a cyborg.
No, just cybernetically enhanced.
You will be terminated.
Standing at number 8 is Mortal Kombat 11. NetherRealms has been hard at work creating the next best Mortal Kombat game, and it's paid off with this latest entry. Sure, it's still the campy and gratuitously gory game we've always loved, but NetherRealms manages to elevate everything to the point of sophistication. In its emotionally charged storyline, which follows shortly after the events of Mortal Kombat X, we get a play on time travel that pays homage to their previous games, introducing a host of new and old characters that all play in their part in the compelling narrative, with the exception of Ronda Rousey's Sonya Blade, of course.
Sonya Blade was the first kick-ass girl that I saw come onto the scene, and I've always admired her and admittedly kind of emulated her in, my own way, and now I get to try and be her.
Where Mortal Kombat 11 really sparkled though is in its gameplay. Despite a long-running legacy, Mortal Kombat 11 has no problem keeping it fresh. Not only did they repurpose the X-rays that formed a huge part of the past two games, they've also added offense and defense bars, crushing blows, and fatal blows that all add up to a fighting experience that is fluid and intuitive, and even when you're losing, is a joy to play. If there's one drawback to the game though, it's the microtransactions. As much as it has a rich array of customizations, ZTGD says grinding for all the cool stuff the game has is a real chore. There have been a lot of updates since the game's release, some of them made especially to combat these gripes. With that said, despite its issues, many would agree that MK11 is arguably NetherRealm's best work so far, with a play score of 8.44.
What's happening now?
Get her out of here! This is a bad move! Go! You're just dead weight!
With a stylish number 7 spot is Devil May Cry 5. Devil May Cry is one of the earlier releases among this year's superstar roster of games, and seeing that it's still rocking on the year-end rankings shows off the quality of this installment. After 11 years of waiting, Devil May Cry 5 makes a spectacular return, bringing their much-changed Demon Slayers in tow, along with a brand new face.
I have a duty to see this through.
With Nero's demon arm gone, we get to spice things with replacement appendages that each have unique abilities. For the new guy, V.
Okay, Shakespeare, just remember this. You and I like to exist, so get rid of those demons quick, cause killing them ain't my stick.
We get a less passive but nevertheless stylish way of fighting with his demonic animal companions. And, well, Dante got a whole lot grayer. But it's a whole lot of the varied, straightforward action that we loved, and perhaps that's what makes it so great. Like VG Chart says, many titles have become more story-driven, but not Devil May Cry, which feels like it embodies the exact same attitude of its older PS2 titles. Especially following the polarizing DMC reboot, which changed way too many things for comfort, DMC5 was a welcome development. It's gorgeous, polished, and offers so much in detail and combat. Even those left hopelessly lost by its over-the-top storyline couldn't help but praise it anyways. But we'll leave Xbox achievements with a bottom line. A triumphant return for Capcom's coolest series, Devil May Cry 5 is a stupidly slick game that does almost everything right. It has a play score of 8.45.
I won't ask again. Where is your son?
In good hands.
At number 6 is A Plague Tale: Innocence. Another game released before the halfway mark that still found its way among the year's top runners. For an independent studio, that makes it all the more impressive. As a survival action adventure, there's a lot that contributes to its success, from its gorgeously grim world to its compelling stealth mechanics, and especially its rich, evocative storyline.
Pursued by the relentless Inquisition and unending swarms of ravenous rats.
Is anyone there?
Thrust into a brutal new reality, they will confront dangers no child should ever face.
Telling the tale of two siblings, Amicia and Hugo, were faced with their harrowing adventure set against the backdrop of a plague-ridden 14th century.
Where are we going? Come on, just run as fast as you can.
Amicia de Rune and her young brother Hugo set out on a poetic and harrowing journey deep into the dark heart of the plague-ridden, war-torn Kingdom of France.
Unlike the other games in this list, Innocence received some lukewarm reviews from its critics. While there were those like Player One who described it as honest, brutal, and incredibly hopeful, all at the same time without being naive, there were also like IGN who found its rat-infested world looking more dangerous than it actually is. Sure, it's not a game for everyone. Its themes may be a little too depressing for some, but it utilizes it in a way that makes it a poignant, emotional adventure all the way.
No, Nicholas! Don't touch him! No! Hugo! Run! Get away from me!
There is no one there. Let's go.
Gamers, most especially those from Amazon and the Microsoft Store, had more than positive reviews. Just like its two main characters, A Plague Tale, Innocence manages to hold its head up high amid the storms, getting a well-deserved spot with a play score of 8.45.
Peace is finally preciously near. We set out on the ocean to secure that peace. Failing this mission would surely plunge us into darker days.
Running at number 5 is Salt and Sanctuary. One of the more surprising titles on this list, Ska Studios took their time in bringing their Dark Souls-inspired action RPG to the Microsoft console, but it looks like it all paid off in the end. First released on the PC 2016, Salt and Sanctuary has been making its rounds among other consoles, first exclusively on the PS4 before later moving on to the Switch. 3 years later, after it first launched, Salt and Sanctuary is kicking it on the Xbox One with features like New Game Plus, challenge modes, and local co-op. Critic reviews for a recent port, much less on the Xbox One, are understandably sparse, but from the little it has, they were overwhelmingly positive. Despite its age, Handsome Phantom praised the game's precise controls that make you feel in control of your character. Xbox Tavern veers away from the tradition of comparing it to the From Software title. For them, it deserves a spotlight of their own, calling it a dark and twisted journey that constantly relays a remarkable amount of depth, variety, innovation, and detail. They also go on to say that its greatest achievement is its ability to frequently entice its players despite how often it screws them over. Old but still gold on the Xbox One, it gets a play score of 8.47.
You called me. So here I am.
And at 4th place is Control. After Alan Wake, Max Payne, and Quantum Break, Remedy Entertainment adds another feather in their cap with this latest title. It's a title that hovers around their comfort zone of weird science fiction shooters. However, with Control, Remedy culminates everything they learned from their past work and put it in an open world setting and dialed everything up to 11. The psychological trip is brought to us through Jessie Faden, who after a harrowing childhood finds herself at the helm of the Federal Bureau of Control and wielding the seemingly sentient service weapon. Mixing it up with the powers of telekinesis, levitation, and suggestion, we get to experience the superlative gunplay and action that's existed in most of Remedy's works. Navigating through their brutalist masterpiece of a setting in a non-linear Metroidvania-like manner was also one of Control's biggest highlights. The atmosphere is just the right kind of eerie and the visuals are as stunning as ever. On the other hand, especially in decidedly destructive and hectic scenes, Control runs into some trouble with frame rates. Remedy may have addressed this in a later patch, but some work remains to be done. Thankfully for most, these don't do much to dull the spectacle of what Destructoid calls a weird, enigmatic, perplexing masterpiece. It has a play score of 8.49. Counting down to 3 is Tales of Vesperia Definitive Edition. 10 years after it was first released on the Xbox 360, the Tales series' 10th mainline entry finds itself at home on a Microsoft console once more. Tales of Vesperia is, for many JRPG fans, one of the best titles within the series, so it makes a lot of sense that its return, packed with all sorts of improvements and additions, would once again stir the hearts of JRPG fans of this generation too. For those that missed out, Bandai Namco reopened the doors to Terca Lumeris with full HD graphics, never before seen characters, expanded storylines, and fully voiced dialogue.
Did that monster just say something? That voice sounds familiar. Well.
While these didn't disappoint, critic reviewer GameSpew warns, just don't expect it to blow your socks off like it once did. He also went on to say that the Tales of Vesperia story is a little drawn out and that its real-time combat system feels dated. Critics also pointed out flaws in the voice acting and cutscenes, but ultimately decided that the experience of a JRPG classic with new bells and whistles is worth the bumps on the road. Receiving high 9s and 8s from Microsoft, Amazon, and What to Play game reviewers, it found its way to the top with a play score of 8.55. Finishing with a beautiful silver number 2 is Outer Wilds. If you read that wrong, no, it's not that other game from Obsidian Entertainment. Outer Wilds is an open-world action-adventure from Mobius Digital and Annapurna Interactive. It isn't a AAA game by any measure, and some of us probably haven't heard of it. But it brings to the fore an energy and ingenuity that generally makes up the best indie titles. Simplified to its barest form, it's Groundhog Day in space, as you relive the same 22 minutes in a bid to uncover the mystery of an ancient race in a dying solar system. After each death or 22-minute run, the landscape changes too, albeit subtly. And the way it's executed within a limited space makes it unique from other games. Player 1 goes so far to say it manages to blow other space exploration-based titles away for a mere $10. And this sentiment isn't unique. While they might have problems with its lack of narrative structure and memorable characters, Game Reactor basically agrees that No Man's Sky and Elite Dangerous Infinite Universe can't hold a candle to Outer Wilds' stripped-down cosmos. The moral of the story is simple. Bigger is not always better. Doing so much with so little and for a budget cost too, Outer Wilds is our number 2 game of the year with a play score of 8.6.
Dr. Birkin, you'll come along with us quietly.
I'm not handing over anything!
And the number 1 Xbox One game of 2019 is Resident Evil 2. Released in January and still topping our list 12 months later, Capcom's AAA resurrection of their 1998 title was the spark of hope that horror fans needed. Capcom didn't just rebuild Resident Evil 2 from the ground up, they went the extra mile by adding fresh additions like adaptive difficulty, brand new areas, scenarios, and narrative changes that elevate its slightly campy origins.
Hello?
Good to see you again, Claire. We've got unfinished business.
And throughout these changes, they still perfectly capture the spirit of the original. Den of Geek comments, newcomers among players will likely discover a new favorite horror franchise to explore, while longtime followers of the series will find a sweet blend of familiarity and freshness. This recreation of Claire and Leon's misadventures in Raccoon City was done so well that it became amazing in its own right. GameSpot nailed it when they said, it's not only a stellar remake of the original, but it's also simply a strong horror game, topping some of the series' finest entries. RE2 came at just the opportune moment. Together with the release of RE7, it revived fans' faith on the franchise. If you're of the mind that the series had lost its way for a while there, this game is very much a return to form.
It's coming back!
And that's why this is 2019's Xbox Game of the Year with a play score of 8.85.